Well, what's the worst that could happen? Okay, that's the worst that could happen. Now what you just saw there was the opening to a game called Returnal, which actually is the subject of today's video. This is the first video in a very long series that I'm calling 1 hour reviews, which honestly could be a lot better of a title, working title. But this is where I play a game for 1 hour and I give you pros, cons, gameplay, anything else that sticks out that I think might be of use to any gamer. You know, I think a lot of us gamers are growing up, and with that comes responsibilities, work, life, marriage, kids, if you're lucky. What I'm trying to say is we don't have a lot of time to play games anymore. I know for me myself, I'm single, don't have much responsibility, and I only have time to play a game by myself for like an hour. So an hour can be make or break for a game. Once you get an hour into it, you realize what you like, what you don't like. You have a pretty good grasp as to what the game is and what is welcoming you and what's deterring you from continuing to play it. So that's what I'm doing for you. I'm playing the game for an hour, and once that hour is up, I'm going to give my complete thoughts on it and whether or not I would continue to play the game or not. So, getting right into it, once you've crashed on this mysterious planet, you've seemingly been ejected from your ship. This is when you start exploring though. You go through a few different rooms. The aesthetic and the lighting and the visuals are all amazing to look at. I mean, I spent a lot of time just kind of walking around, looking at my surroundings. Even these weird blue tentacle things were kind of interesting to look at. They don't hurt you, but it gave me like a weird Avatar feel. After going through a couple different areas, you run into a dead scout, and initially I thought it was going to be a completely different person, but plot twist, as soon as you turn that helmet, it's you. You're the one that died. Or I guess you didn't die. I don't know, it's all really confusing. It's video game logic. Once you're done hanging out with dead you look over and you got yourself a sidearm, so you can finally defend yourself against whatever enemies that you may or may not run across. At this point in the game, you haven't seen any yet, but you know once you get the gun, you're gonna find them anyway. Now that you got your little pea shooter, you get to move on to a few different areas that have a couple different enemy types, and then you come up this crazy boss who's insanely difficult to beat. I mean, I couldn't do it. He got me in like 3 hits. I didn't know what to do. I'm pretty sure it's scripted though. Hence why the game is called Returnal. They want you to die so you can see the effects of what happened when you die, what you get to keep, what you don't get to keep, and then you move on. Once you die from that crazy boss, you respawn back at your ship Helios. And this is truly where the game takes off. And you go through the first door and you realize that the environment is completely different, which is actually a mechanic I didn't know about going into it. It turns out every time you die, the environment changes. So you don't know where everything is. There's no just running back to where you were. You need to find everything all over again. This game heavily relies on exploration. I mean, you need to find keys to open up different doors or different chests. You get to find different weapons. You get almost like a currency system called oblites, which you can use for different upgrades throughout the game. If you want to know more about the story, you can find ciphers to translate different writings. You can also find other dead scouts and choose to either avenge them or just leave them alone. There's also a pretty cool system that has to do with malignant items. That basically means that when you pick up that item, you get a buff, but at the same time you also get a nerf until you complete the challenge, whatever that challenge may be, like use a disposable item like 3 times or kill so many enemies, so on and so forth, and it's located in the top left of the screen. To combat that, if you don't want to do the challenge, if the challenge proves to be a little too difficult, what you can do is use ether to clean the malignant items so you can just get them without the nerf. Now with all this exploring and a lot of ways to just get lost trying to find everything, Returnal actually implemented a pretty cool system where you could take technology that was once used by the actual inhabitants of the planet and repurpose them for yourself. The one that I found during the first hour of the game was one that allowed me to basically fast travel by teleporting to different points, which I found very useful in order to get from the ship to a different area that I haven't fully explored to getting out of an area in which I fully explored. Now let's get to the best part of the game, the combat. At Returnal, 100% excels in this immensely. The enemies are pretty tough. There's a lot of them. But the coolest part is that everything that they throw at you, none of it is actually hit scan. Everything's almost projectile based. So you have time to maneuver and get away from anything that's fired at you. At the same time, your weapons, there's no ammo that you needed to keep track of. Everything recharges. And you have two different fire types. If you hold down the trigger at about halfway, it'll fire normally. If you pull it all the way down, it does your secondary fire, which could be anywhere from like an explosive to just like a huge splatter area with a shotgun. With not having an ammo pool to worry about though, you actually have almost a quick reload. So in the center bar where it shows you reloading or recharging your weapon, if you hit the trigger right there, it'll actually insta reload your weapon or recharge your weapon, and then you can continue the fight and you won't have to worry about overcharging or overheating your weapon. You also have a dodge, and you're actually invulnerable while dodging. So if you find yourself in a position where there's no way you can just maneuver out of the different projectiles being thrown at you, you can just use your dodge button and just get right through it. On top of all the chaos that's going on while you're in a fight in Returnal, they introduced a system called the Adrenaline system. So for every 3 enemies that you kill, up to 5 times, you basically get a different kind of buff. So I don't know exactly what the different levels are because I haven't gotten that far. But the buffs are definitely very useful in the fight, so you definitely want to avoid getting hit for as long as you can. It's all very fast paced, and there's been many fights in different areas where I've realized that there's just so many enemies and I'm almost out of health, and I'm sprinting around trying to avoid everything, just looking for one health rock in the entire area that I can use to continue the fight, because the last thing you want to do is die and then be reset all over again.
God, I always messed that up.
Now at the very end of my 1 hour playthrough, I ran into a random house on the planet. I think it's definitely the character you play as, Celine's house from Earth. But it was locked and I couldn't go inside. Eventually I did end up finding the key for it, but at that time my hour was up, so I wasn't able to go into the house to find out what the mystery was. But I think that's where the story is really going to take place in this game. So not only do you have a crazy planet to explore, awesome combat, but there's some sort of hidden story that you need to kind of unfold yourself, not only with what happened on the planet itself and with the original inhabitants, but why you're always getting reset whenever you die, or why you're seeing a random house on a planet that's not supposed to be there. There's definitely a lot to unpack, and honestly, this is a game that I would probably continue playing. So far, if I had to give it a rating between 1 through 10 within the first 60 minutes, I'd give it about an 8 or a 9. I mean, it's held my attention, and honestly, I'm the kind of guy that gets distracted by every little thing. It's raining outside. All jokes aside, this is a game that I'm going to continue playing. I want to find out what the different secrets are as far as the planet and what's going on with Celine. If you want to see more of it, you like what you saw, you want to come hang out, I'll be playing it all week on my Twitch. I hope to see you there. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. I hope you all really enjoyed the 60-minute review of Returnal. I hope to see you in the stream. Stay tuned next week because we're going to be doing a review of Curved Space. No idea what this game is. Hopefully it's good, but I guess you have to wait until next week to find out, just as I will.